are over with about the end of March, then if they're going to look around. If the coast is clear, you're going to see them come back out of their holes until the summertime.
Bide their time later. Yeah. Perhaps it's a good thing that everybody in the whole world's not listening and taking you at face value right now, Terral, or otherwise the store shelves would be empty and a lot of people wouldn't even make it to March the 22nd.
Well, that's why the elites think that they're saving you by not waking everybody up and not telling everybody. And everything is coming out slowly so that those who are awake, those who are worthy, those are the ones that are waking up, and then they're taking the advice, and they're the ones that are getting prepared. Because if everybody woke up now, everybody would die. And they know that. But they're not going to be able to hide it much longer. I'm looking at a story right now that came off. This is the regular news from Action News at CBS. This is what it says. It says, scientists are baffled by Venus's dramatic decline. Planet rotating 6.5 minutes slower. Okay? So the planets are giving us more and more signs that there's something wrong. We had our geologist in here that's been on a lot of my radio shows. He was in our research room last night explaining how the Earth's tilt is at 1.5 degrees, 1.6 degrees behind where it should be right now. And that the Earth is showing more and more symptoms, just like Venus is. And what it looks like to me is that our inner solar system is now in the thralls of having a dual heliosphere. So our sun has an atmosphere around it that pressure wave sticks out about 100 AU. And there's bubbles that bounce around the outside that protect us from the bad things that are out there. But now we have another mini solar system coming in with an inner reach and an outer reach, and we're inside of two heliospheres, which means, pardon me, it means that the atmosphere, if you will, is becoming thicker on the inside of our solar system. This thing is pushing waves of subatomic particles, and now our flux count is way high, and it's like swinging a baseball bat underwater. So everything's getting thicker, and you should expect things to slow down. And that's exactly the signs that we're seeing, saying that our hypothesis is right.
Does that mean maybe I can live longer? Maybe instead of 20 years to go, maybe I got 30 years to go. Terral, I'll tell you what, we're going to take a break right here. But when we come back, I want you to be prepared. And let's talk about what the average person could actually do about any of this, okay?
Okay.
All righty. Thank you. We'll be back after these words. Howdy, it's Jim Mars. We're back here on Epic Voyagers, and man, we're really getting an earful tonight about the heavy mass object. Take your pick: dwarf star, dead star, black star, brown star, Nibiru, wormwood, Planet X. Who knows? But it does seem pretty clear to me, and it's obviously very clear to our guest tonight, Terral Croft, that something's going on. Something's causing all this. So, Terral, before we left, I posed a question, and let's chat a little bit about before we take some questions from the audience. And by the way, if you've got questions for me or for Terral, you can call 888-919-2355. That's 888-919-2355. And we'll try to take your questions as they come. So, Terral, this is all really interesting. I'm sure it's a little bit scientific for some of the folks, including me. But so what do we do about this?
Well, instead of telling people what to do, I'll tell you what I do. Because I can't give advice like a doctor or attorney, but I can tell you what I did. I lived in Florida, and I moved away from the coast. In the worst case scenario, you're looking at a pole shift that causes the water to crawl up on the land to, say, 250 miles and to 650 to 1,000 feet. So I moved from Florida to Arkansas. I found myself a cavern owner. I crawled through a lot of caverns, shook hands with a lot of cavern owners, and found myself part of like a communal society here, and where I work, and I'm planting peas and extending chicken houses and building greenhouses. We have a cavern, a big cavern, and we put our food in the cavern and our survival gear, our traps, animal traps, fishing gear, stuff like that. We're ready in case we need to use the cavern because of the solar threat that we've identified. Remember, when this thing gets close to the sun, then the sun's going to really start belching, and we need a cavern. So I've identified these threats, and then I neutralize them by, one at a time. and this is the way that I did it. You're looking at the collapse of our society. Is what you're looking at, and you should suspect, because since those programs are running, that they're looking to lock down the population. So if you're in a large city, then you're going to be locked down likely. You're not going to be able to escape. Remember that the gangs are controlling about 250 of our cities, and so whenever the crap hits the fan, then you're probably going to be looking at a gang member with a gun, and there's not going to be enough policemen and not enough military to stop them. So what I would do is use Chile 2001 as an example, and I'd be getting out of the large populated areas into the rural area, and half my research is in tracking the heavy mass object and that stuff, but the other half is to learn to live off the grid. So I'm learning to live less and less and less on the grid until I can finally learn to live off the grid, because when it happens, I feel like that we're all going to be living off the grid.
So maybe be sure and take your Boy Scout manual.
Right. And remember that the thing that's going to kill more people after this event is bad water. You're going to need water purification. And everybody needs acidophilus, because people don't realize, with the support of our cities and our hospitals and stuff, just how sensitive life really is. And whenever you eat bad food and it kills the stomach flora, how are you going to replace it? It's so easy to perish out here in the survival situation if you don't take these things into account. So you're going to need acidophilus, you're going to need water purification means, you're going to need first aid and second aid and all that for whenever things go wrong. And if you're on any kind of medicines, you're going to have to stock up on that kind of stuff. Like I said, identify your threats, create your contingencies, and execute on time to be ahead of the curve. So the biggest thing is awareness. Like anything else, you got to be aware of what's happening. And one way you can stay aware is to get my newsletter, Terral's 2012 newsletter. You get that at terral03.com. Subscribe to that, and every Friday, then you'll get a link where you can go to get more and more information. Our researchers put it together, and from their articles and astronomy reports, timeline information, things like that, survival information. So I think that's a good way. If you can't keep your finger on the pulse, you can't come to our Pal Talk room, the research room, then at least you have some way to get information that can get you ahead of the curve.
Tell us a little bit about your Pal Talk. How do they find that? How do they join? How do you get in on that?
Go to paltalk.com, download Pal Talk Messenger. It's just like Microsoft or Windows Messenger. It's very simple. Get yourself a username and a password, then go under Education and then Other, and you're going to see Terral's Research Group. Then you have an opportunity to join the group and then enter the room. When you enter the room, then you have a little microphone. You can hear people talking on the mic. You can raise your hand, go up on the mic. You can share your information, ask questions, things like that. And
how much does that cost?
Free. It's all free.
It's free. Oh, in other words,
sir.
you're not trying to make a bundle of money off this thing, right?
No, sir. I've been criticized for not making money off of that. Even my books are not published. I give them away to people, for a little bitty donation. Things like that.
Doesn't sound like then you're trying to, defraud somebody, trying to stir up something to make money. It kind of leaves that accusation out, doesn't it?
Yes, sir. If I'm doing it for money, I'm doing a poor job.
Yeah, I hear you on that. Well, I've heard talks of the boogie bag, okay, which is particularly for people who live in the city, and you get you like a backpack or whatever, and you've got some medicine, some water, a little bit of food, you got some stuff, whatever you think you're going to need. Are people in urban areas going to have enough time to use a boogie bag and get out?
You're talking about a Bugout bag.
A Bugout bag. I call it a
if you're inside of a
bag.
I think you're going to have extreme difficulty if you're in a city. Whenever people start running out of food in 72 hours, whenever you run out of food, then what are you going to do? Your Bugout bag, it's only anybody that has any resources is going to be taken down by somebody else. So you need to get out of the big cities. But then there's a good use for your Bugout bag and things that you put in your Bugout bag. Your compass, your fire starter, a little tent so you can get out of the rain, a little roll up so that you can lay down on something, a little bit of food, your acidophilus, like I mentioned, your chlorine pills so that you can drink something. I've got the Army issue. It's a little hand crank water. It's got a little rock on it. You stick over in the stream that purifies your water, things like that. Those are the things. Even duct tape. I would recommend going to the Army Navy surplus store and to outfit some of your Bugout bag. I use the line from the parachute cord line. Very good stuff. Get your little tents and things like that. your water canteens, your knives, things like that, compasses. You can get a lot of that at the Army surplus store. And one of the most important things about your survival is your boots. That's something you're going to be living in. You need to go ahead and get yourself a good pair that wrap your ankles, like construction boots. If you have children, get multiple pairs that are larger. They're going to be growing out of them. And you're going to want to be able to waterproof them, Vaseline or something like that, for crossing the creeks, which you have many of it here in the Ozarks. Just some of the things to think about for your bug-out bag. And do your research. Go online and search bug-out bags, what things you should put in there. And that's how you get started with your bug-out bag. And then for your survival kit, you're going to need tents and things like that, wood-burning stoves. You put together your own what you feel like that you need to survive, and get the best advice you can ahead of time before you need the stuff.
Well, and the reason I ask is that I was coming out of Dallas last night and coming out on one of the major freeways coming out of Dallas. And I am constantly amazed that at this day, when all the cities and the counties and even the federal government are broke and nobody's got any money, and there's so many people going hungry, and infrastructure is crumbling, and yet what have they been doing? They've been putting concrete barriers in the medians, okay, all along these freeways. So I'm thinking now, why are they spending all that much, miles and miles of concrete? It's got to cost a lot of money, plus the manpower and everything else. Why are they squandering money to put concrete barriers between the lanes and the medians, between the lanes on the major freeways? And I've noticed this in other cities too. Why would they be doing that? And finally, it dawned on me, well, look, they set up a police or military blockade and checkpoint. You can't turn around. So you're not going anywhere.
Looking towards lockdown. That's
Mm-hmm.
right. And that's why you need to be out in the rural area, and you need to be changing your setting from being in the urban to being in the rural area. So for me, now if you can be a large group of thousands of people, then you can become a hard target, because what comes after this? What comes after lockdown? When everything goes crazy, what comes after is you're going to be looking at mercenaries, likely. The elite are not just going to let anybody that survives threaten them. So they're going to have forces. Just think Halliburton and Blackwater.
Yeah.
And their mercs. Yeah, Blackwater's Halliburton with guns. That's what it is. And it's Cheney and Rumsfeld, those guys. And they're the people that are advising, doing threat assessment for the elites. And so those are the people you're going to be looking at. So if you become a hard target, they will negotiate with you. But if you can't, then you need to embed with the locals, which is what I did, and be covert. I want to be 40 minutes from a paved road. I want to be up in the hills and have a cavern. And whenever the trouble starts coming, then I've got plenty of warning, right? Because we know everybody all along the road, all the way down the line. And a lot of them are related to the people that I'm embedded with here. So it's these are the things that I do in order to prepare for what's coming, preparing for societal collapse.
And you're far enough out that it might not be worth trying to come out to you.
Well, if they do, then it's going to be later in the timeline for them. Expect that they're going to concentrate on the cities first, and there's going to be chaos and mayhem. And think about it, they're not going to be as worried about the people that are prepared, that are out here, they're not bothering anybody. It's the unprepared people. It's the people that are killing each other in the big cities that they're going to have to focus on. But let's take it to the next step. The elites are going to run into their underground cities. What they're going to do is send their sleepers out to deal with us. And then when the heavy mass object comes, they're expecting that the heavy mass object is going to kill us all. That's what they're trying for.
Were you talking about these solar flares and the noontime heat waves and things like that? Would you be able to, do you feel like you're going to be able to get by if you've got a nice basement?
I don't think so. The duration that in the heat, the amount of heat in the worst case scenario, and I have got confirmed, I've got reports from the astronomers here recently that it appears that Ellen in the orbit diagram is a code for what's happening this year. So it looks like I have to spin the dial about 11 days, and I can use that Ellen in orbit diagram for my new timeline. But I have to verify that with another set of astronomers and see if that's right. But in that case, then we're going to be looking at 90-degree pole shift. We're going to be looking at extreme temperatures. whenever this thing gets proximity to the sun and the earth. And that's whenever we need to run into our underground bunker, our little underground fortress that we made here. But the thing that's going to run you out of your own basement is the heat. So if you have a method of pulling in cool air through a piping system that's underground, then you have a chance. But if you do, if because just the sheer heat is going to displace you right out of your, out of your underground little fortress. If it's the thing about our cavern is we're only developed about the first 300 feet, but it is way deep. So we have the air, all that air that we need. That's cool. In the case of the worst case, you're just not going to have that if you go into your basement.
Okay, see what you're saying. How long? If you say you need to have some food, you need to have some water. How much do you think? Are we talking a few weeks, a few months, a few years?
A year is what we planned on, 1 year. But then we have seeds. I've got enough seeds to plant 2 acres of stuff. And plus, now I'm embedded with the locals, then they lived off the grid for 14 years before they ever had power here. So they know a lot about it and about living off the grid. And they've got the seeds and the stuff to continue that 1 year. In other words, we've got enough food to live with no planting for a year. And then we plan on being able to plant our food hydroponically if needed, but hopefully on the outside the soil won't be ruined.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, you know what? There's really interesting, Terral, and nothing personal, but I hope you're wrong.
I do too. I hope somebody comes along and can explain all the symptoms with something else. Because the theories that I have, then it's catastrophic for the planet. It doesn't matter if it's the galactic rift or if it's a different heavy mass object that I'm thinking, like Keith Hunter. You guys might have heard of him. He's been on Project Camelot a few times. He comes to our research group too. He has a different theory that this thing's like a neutron star, or it's on an eccentric orbit. It gets closer and further away, and that it's affecting us, but it's going to go away. According to his theory, maybe I haven't said it exactly the way that he's described it, but there are other theories that are out there. And if somebody comes along that can explain it better than the heavy mass object, then I'm going to be jumping on board with it. But so far in the last year, nobody's been able to do that.
Right, and I think that you've made your argument pretty plain and pretty understandable. But again, would you agree that from the get-go you have said this is your theory, right?
That's right.
Based on everything you know.
That's right. It has to be that way until I get my 3 confirmed sources. When I get 3 astronomers that give me the same set of pictures, then I will no longer say it's a theory. But until then, that I have to keep, even though I know it's there. March 22nd is going to confirm that there's something there. But whenever I get the confirmed sources, then I will stop saying it's a theory. But for right now, you're right. I have to say that it's a theory.
Okay. And if March the 22nd, we're talking just a month away. So the good news is we don't have a whole long time to try to wait to see if your theory is true or not, right?
That's right. But remember that I might be able to predict when this event's going to happen right to the second and still be wrong about what caused it. So there's more than one theory. It could be a rift in space that's laying across the sun in the Leo constellation. It could be a heavy mass object that's out a lot further that we don't know about. It could be something else besides a heavy mass object inbound coming in for a perihelion event. It's possible. So let's just stay tuned. There is something happening. It's not like we're just making all this stuff up. There are a lot of very smart researchers working on this project, and like you say, hopefully that we're wrong. But some people have a worst case scenario that's worse than mine. That this is going to be far worse than what I'm saying. I'm getting advice from that. I'm also hearing from people that are working with they're biologists. They're working with seeds, and they're saying that they're working with alien seeds, and that there's an armada of alien ships that are actually out there that's waiting for the heavy mass object to come through, and then they're going to come along behind and do something. Don't know quite what it is, but like I say, that's another unconfirmed report, which I'm sure you've heard lots of. There's lots of reports like that, though, coming in that there are aliens out there, that their ships are being spotted, their motherships that are out there, and that we could be looking at an alien event. And so for my Bible work, then I kind of tie that together. If you go to 2 Kings chapter 2, verse 10 and 11, you see Elijah jumped in one of those chariots of fire, and he went to heaven. So I'm thinking these might be good guys. And I also noticed that whenever Moses was here and Noah was here, that they had earth change events. And after that, the people lived to be a different number of years. So before Noah, they lived to be 1,000 years old or more. And then
Mm-hmm.
between Noah and Moses, they lived to be 120, and now they're living 70 after Moses. And it's making me wonder if this thing hasn't come before, and if it's coming again at the end of the age, because Matthew 24 reads a lot like what's happening now. And it makes me wonder if they're not bringing something with them to be deposited that's going to change the life cycle again. So it looks like that my Bible work and my science work is trying to merge with the day of the Lord coming as a thief in the night, because this thing and the day of the Lord appear to be coming simultaneously.
Well, if there's ETs out there and they're standing around, and there's plenty of people who various means channeling and experiencing and the so-called abduction phenomena, who say, well, yeah, they're out there, and maybe they will help us out. Do you think there's any chance that they have the technology to either ameliorate or maybe even prevent all of the more dire results that you're seeing?
I don't think they want to. I think they're going to wait till it comes through, and then they're going to be cleaning up the mess. Actually, picking up
the pieces.
Well, the nuclear power plants are going to start melting down. So whenever they can't cool their rods, then they're going to start melting down after about 90 minutes, like Fukushima. And the East Coast is just littered with nuclear power plants. That's why the eastern seaboard is a dead zone, and the western side, because the caldera that's going to burst out there. That's why the Ozarks is the best place to be. Ozarks down to Texas, as long as you're on the west side, and you have some elevation there. That's the safe zone for the United States, is in the central, between Texas and the Ozarks.
Well, what else would you advise for people to be doing? Would it be worthwhile to get the media to try to tell us the truth about whatever's going on, or is it just that's not going to happen?
It's not going to happen. This has been going on for a long time. Remember that Rothschild is the head of the snake that beguiles the world, and his banksters, what they're doing right now is they're getting their central banks installed in every nation on earth. That's the reason that Saddam Hussein was killed, and Gaddafi, and, well, if you go back in time, Abraham Lincoln and Garfield and JFK was killed by the House of Rothschild. And it's so that he can control the currency. And he's not controlling the currency. He wasn't controlling the currency coming out of Libya, and they were coming out with a gold-based currency, which was going to kill all the fiat currencies in the world. So he had to die. But they didn't rattle their sabers or anything. They just went and killed him. But they're doing the saber rattling routine with Syria because they're trying to effect a regime change. And they're going to try to do the same thing with Iran, too, because Russia and China is going to be the wild cards there. They're never going to vote for it. So what they have to do is that they have to have a false flag. They have to blame it on Iran. It has to be very hideous so that whenever they attack Iran, that China blinks. They have to make China blink for half a day, say. If they can do that, pull that off, then they can start their propaganda machine, and then they can maybe pull this thing off. Otherwise, I believe China starts attacking American warships is the scenario. And that's why we kind of appear to be at a stalemate over there. But that's what we're looking at, is the Rothschild banksters. And they're the ones that really control the underground ARC programs that are going on. And the way that you get a ticket into that ARC program is by keeping your mouth shut. As soon as you say something, your whole family's going to be dead. All your friends are going to be dead. And nobody's going to the underground city. So this has been going on for a very long time.
Sounds kind of like the movie 2012, except instead of ships that are going to sail along and ride it out, they've got underground shelters, and from other sources, I'm told, they may even have craft that can take people off planet.
Right. But where are you going to go? What if the proximity report for Mars is worse than it is for Earth? You could be jumping out of the frying pan right into the fire.
Yep. Unless it's kind of like the same thing on, if the tidal wave comes, if you've got an airtight ship, you can just kind of float and float around and wait it out. Maybe they think the same thing can happen in space. You just kind of float around as long as you're not fried by a sun eruption, then maybe you could just ride it out.
That would make sense. But remember that in the case of a pole shift event, that we're going to be looking at a pole shift, which is likely going to be 90-degree variety, and then you're going to have a pole shift reversal because the sun is going to regain polarity control. and the Earth's going to stand back up, and you're going to have the whole thing all over again. And then when it passes out of the solar system, we're going to have another alignment. And if the Earth core is super hot, which it's likely going to be, the plates are going to be floating on hot magma. When that happens, and you have the alignment, then you have a Fukushima-like event, but then the tidal wave